and welcome to another episode of GoalTime. Today's story is about not only following your passion, following your dream, but how do you make a vocation out of that? How do you make a career, a business out of that? And then knowing it's not going to be easy to get that to that point, but to also then have challenges and adversity, obstacles that you weren't expecting, maybe even one that potentially could end it all. Tonight, I think you'll be very inspired by my guest. Her name is Kathryn Costello. Thanks for coming, Kathryn.
Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So your vocation, your passion, tell us about it.
I'm a portrait photographer, and I specialize in the areas of dance, editorial portraits, and headshots.
All right.
And editorial portraits, I'm focusing now on high school seniors.
Okay.
And they're about, telling somebody's story, like what really makes them who they are.
Yeah, and we're going to get into
Yeah.
all of that, how you do it, how you get the best out of people during a shoot and really not just capture a picture with a fake smile,
Yeah.
but how do you get the real person to show up in those photographs? It's absolutely fascinating. But I want to start from the very beginning.
Sure.
What got you into photography?
I always have been interested. For as long as I can remember, I used to borrow my mom's camera, and back in the day it was a Kodak Instamatic with a little square cube.
Oh, I remember those.
Yes. And I was just fascinated with it. I was fascinated with the camera. And I remember one day we were on the Cape and it was stormy all day long, just thunder and lightning and hard rain. And then the storm cleared just as the sun was rising. And I grabbed my mom's photo and ran out to the beach, and there were like big storm waves and the most beautiful sunset I think I'd ever seen.
Wow.
And I just took pictures and I was hooked.
Wow.
Just loved it.
Wow, that's fantastic. So now you fall in love with the art of it. And when did you decide you wanted to make a vocation or career out of it?
Yeah, so that came much, much later. I was always interested. I would always pick up course catalogs and go straight to the photography section. And then when they started talking about, f-stops and shutter speeds, I was immediately turned off. Like, okay, maybe another time. But then when I had children, I thought, I really want to do this. I'd always been so intrigued by working in a dark room and seeing that image come up in the chemicals, and so cool. So I found a very good teacher, and I went to the Worcester Center for Crafts, and they have a beautiful darkroom there. And I studied with a man who was a third removed from Ansel Adams.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he was a student of a student of a student, and
Wow.
he taught that system of making an exposure. And he was such a beautiful artist, and I was just loving it. And I took pictures of my kids, and that's how it all started.
Is there ever a point where it stops becoming art and it becomes something that can be produced? Is there ever a line that's crossed there?
Well, I think when you're talking about photography, there might be a point at which an image is so processed and composited that it no longer becomes a photograph. It becomes photo art.
It's true.
And the point at which it no longer becomes art, I think that would be getting into artificial intelligence.
Interesting.
And my opinions
Right.
on that. Yeah, but my theory on Photoshop and on retouching in general is that, I use the tools at my disposal, but if it ever gets to the point where it looks like it's been retouched, it's too much.
Right.
It has to be a photograph still.
Yeah.
It has to look like I got it that way when I shot it.
Right. Yeah, my wife, her father took and produced his own photographs in a dark room, and she always loved the romantic side of it.
Yeah.
Of it's a skill set for you in a natural condition to get the shot.
Yes,
So
in camera we call it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So I wonder how much is lost there with not only Photoshop and filters, but also with AI. It'd be a whole nother half-hour show to talk about that. But I really want to dive back into the business. What year did you start it as a business?
2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, you ever own a business before? Ever start a business before?
No.
And what was your biggest fear going into that part of it? I mean, there's the art part of it. There's the
Yeah.
photography is challenging enough, but being a business owner has a whole nother set of challenges.
Right. I think that in the beginning, the hardest part was really presenting myself as a photographer without feeling like I was lying, and because I
What do you
felt
mean by
like,
that?
well, I mean that I always imagined portrait photographers as being like huge egos, big studios, big productions, and that wasn't me. I was just one person with a camera that shot with natural light. That's how I started.
Right?
And I was an artist. And so how do I compete with that? And I started so slowly because I did this as I was raising 3 children.
Oh, wow.
So it was always kind of like a side gig for me. I also had another business designing websites. So I did both of those things and I raised 3 kids. So it was a lot, but photography's always been a real passion of mine.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that the business didn't destroy the art. And to be honest, at several points, I think that it did. At least the artist in me got kind of lost.
I've seen a lot of people who were artists that not only had that passion, but then tried to make money from it.
Yeah.
And they had to compromise or they had to sacrifice some of the art side of it to make money. And,
Exactly.
Right, to it. So what was your biggest challenge in staying authentic to Kathryn the artist while doing this to put money on the bread on the table and to pay the rent, the mortgage?
I think that it was learning from people. I just learned everything I could. And when there was a photographer that inspired me, I would watch all their tutorials. I mean, I came of age as a photographer as the internet was starting to get more and more popular. So we take it for granted now, but back in 2000, 2002, that was all very new still. And so it was a perfect platform for teachers to teach their photography skills and get a national or international following. And so for me, it was great because I would find somebody, find out if they taught, which many of them did, and then sign up for their classes. And it was a challenge to learn from them and then kind of jump off that platform, meet them in person, and learn from them in person. And I went at it with a vengeance. I just put so much time and energy into learning. And so when you do that, I think there is a tendency for your own vision to get lost because you're learning from so much from other people.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think for the people watching at home, I think when you have a passion, it's something that you love to do. The fire that's lit inside of you to keep going, keep pushing, because it's more than just a way to get a paycheck. It's truly a purpose for your life and a vocation.
Yes.
And that's the difference between having a job and a true purpose for your life.
Right. And I think it's important to work on personal projects because that keeps that creative energy alive.
Yeah, I love that. What was the most fun project or most important project that you did?
So at some point, I realized that I love shooting in series, and those series would end up being exhibits. And so I did a series on After Dark, and those were all photographs that I had taken at night.
Oh, neat.
And so that mixed my love of dance and doing like powder shoots at night and light painting. I wasn't doing light painting back then, but also my love of star exposures. I've loved that since I was like a teenager. I was fascinated with the night sky.
Yeah.
And so I mixed those two things together. And then at some point I did a series on women over 40, and that was just so profoundly meaningful, not only to them, but to me as well, just really connecting with these women and just inspired by them and their stories.
So it was more than just taking a headshot, taking portraits, but it sounded like there was a meaning behind the project. When you said you were inspired by it or you learned, what did you learn from that project?
I learned that when people go through this certain stage of life, they start reinventing themselves again. And I saw that. I saw women who were, maybe divorced, women who were retired, women who were recovering from cancer, a lot of those, who were just embarking on this new adventure. A lot of them are at turning points in their life, and to me that was inspiring. They got to the point where, society might tell them that they no longer matter. I mean, that sounds so dark, but that's the message a lot of women get. They become invisible when they get to a certain age. And these women were just clearly saying, no, I'm here.
Oh,
And this
wow.
is who I am. It was very profound.
Wow, yeah, and that
Yeah.
could really change you. That's one of the things I love about this show is that, and what I'm trying to give to people out there is inspiration and hope, learning from other people. Other people have had their life experiences, and to know that it's not always just about success and the good times, but everyone has to go through their adversity, their obstacles as well, and everyone has a story. And I'm learning so much from the people who are on this show, and they're giving me inspiration when, I thought we were doing this for people watching, but I'm taking away so much from these interviews as well. So, thank you for coming on board. I appreciate that.
Of course, yeah.
And then I also heard from you when we met earlier, you were talking about a pretty high profile position that you got, or an opportunity with a certain Scott Hamilton.
Yes.
Yeah, can you,
Yeah,
how
so,
did that come about?
it's funny. I have to backtrack a little here. I love photographing dancers and movement, and I started with skating. My own kids skated, and I wanted to photograph at this skating rink. I thought, how cool to take moving portraits of skaters.
Oh, yeah.
And so I went to the front office, and they're like, oh, okay, probably not a problem, but we'll have to have you write a letter to the board and get their approval. So I write this letter. I was very clear. I will not get anyone else in the photos. I'll be very respectful of people's privacy.
Okay.
And they just came back with a hard, absolutely not. I was shocked. I'm like, why?
Wow.
And so it was a real rejection. I felt like it was a rejection, and it really stung. And I thought in the back of my mind, I would really love to photograph Scott Hamilton someday. This won't matter,
Okay.
And so I think that when we plant those seeds deep in our subconscious, we make it happen somehow, maybe a long time later. But one night I was up and I saw that he was having his first annual Scott Hamilton and Friends show.
Okay.
And I decided to reach out because, another backtrack, a friend of mine told me, what's your biggest fear as a photographer? And it's the fear of rejection.
The
And he's
fear
like,
of rejection.
fear of rejection.
Okay.
And he said, you need to make a point of people rejecting you every single day. Like, have someone say no to you every single day. And he got this from a book he read. It's called Go for No, or The
Getting
Power of
Past
No, something like
William
that.
Ury?
Yes.
Yes, Getting Past No. I love that book.
And so it means that those rejections are a part of the journey. And if you shut your mind to those, then you're also going to miss a lot of yeses along the way.
Right. So your goal getting up every morning was to be rejected.
Yes.
That's
Like,
good.
you have to just do it once a day, and you become impervious to it, but you also open yourself up to possibilities that you would not have otherwise.
Absolutely, I love it.
Yes.
Right, and then to push through resistance. That's fantastic. So you sent Scott Hamilton.
Yeah, I thought, okay, it's 11 o'clock at night. I haven't been rejected yet today. And I'm going to write to Scott Hamilton and ask if I can come to Nashville and photograph his show.
Okay, so
And
you're expecting that? No.
I'm expecting to be ghosted, but
Okay.
that counts as a no.
A ghost counts as a no.
Yes.
That makes sense.
And so then I totally forgot about it. I counted it as my no for the day and moved on. And a couple days later, they wrote back, or she didn't write back. She called me, Carrie Morgan, who is his CEO of his foundation, and she said, "You're not going to believe this. We were just sitting around the table thinking, how are we going to photograph this show?
Wow.
Who are we going to ask that really understands skaters?" And then we got your message and all the photos you sent us. And that was the beginning. And I photographed that show now for 8 years. It started in 2016, but then stopped during COVID. So I think it's been 8 or 9 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I go
That's
down.
unbelievable. It comes from almost from therapy.
I know.
Right.
Right.
Right. It's like I need to be rejected more. I need to get over the fear of being rejected.
Exactly.
And then you put something out into the universe, and lo and behold,
Yeah. Yep.
it actually produced maybe your highest profile.
Yeah, definitely. And those shots are so much fun to take because they're moving profiles, or they're moving portraits. What I do in my studio, I love because I control everything. When I go shoot for his foundation or his shows, I just show up. I don't need to worry about the lighting. It's all masterfully done by the best in the business.
And I heard he's
His-
one of the nicest guys in the world,
He
too.
is. He
Yeah.
absolutely is. And I remember I shadowed him when he went to DC and when he's come to Boston a couple times. But then I remember he was sitting there and I was sitting there and he kind of looked over at me shyly and I looked at him shyly. We both just smiled. And over time, it's like we've developed a working friendship.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
There's a couple messages in there that I want to make sure get through to the viewers. Number one, another sports figure, Wayne Gretzky, said, "You are guaranteed to miss 100% of the shots you never take." I always like that quote.
Yeah.
What I really loved about your story is that you not only put yourself out there, but you reach for the stars. And human beings are often limited by their self-imposed limitations. Most people would say, what makes me think I could be Scott Hamilton's personal photographer or traveling photographer? You put it out there, and the world responded by giving you that opportunity because you deserved it, you earned it, you were credible, and you had the skills that it took. But so many people have similar opportunities, and they would never take that chance because of their own self-imposed limitations. So the business is going well. You have successful projects. You have this opportunity in relationship with Scott Hamilton. Everything's going fantastic. And then you get the news. What was the news?
I had stage 4 endometrial cancer that had spread to my lungs.
Unbelievable. Now, how did you receive that news?
On a voicemail.
What?
Yes, they called me back. I went to the doctor because I just had been feeling poorly for far too long. And it's my fault that I didn't go a lot sooner, but I didn't. And she immediately fast-tracked me for all the tests and the biopsies and everything I needed to have done. And they wrote back, or they called me and left a message on my voicemail to, that it was cancer and to call them. And so I did. And from then things happened so quickly. I met with the oncologist at Mass General and we scheduled surgery. And at that point, I still didn't know it was stage 4. They still told me just surgery and radiation, we'll get rid of this. But then during the surgery, I had a very skilled surgeon who was very thorough. And she discovered that it had spread.
Oh.
And so she sent me for some more CT scans, and that's when they found a spot on my lung. And so she set me up for 6 rounds of chemo. And then I had radiation after that, in addition to the surgery. So very aggressive treatment.
Wow.
Yeah.
So everything has to be put on hold,
Pretty
fighting
much.
for your life
at
this point. And how did you handle it? How did you handle it physically, emotionally?
That's a good question. I think you just deal with it because you have to. You just have to get through it. I was really terrified of going through chemo. And it was hard, but there were ups and downs. There were definitely parts in the chemo cycle that you just felt absolutely terrible. But then there were good parts too. And I couldn't do any in-studio photography or any jobs or anything like that, but I did manage to keep my web design business going because that was something I could do from anywhere. And the agency I worked for was very supportive, very understanding. But I still wished that in a way that I hadn't, because it kind of let this corporate vibe into a very sacred healing space.
Really?
Yeah, so it was a trade-off. I appreciated having the work, and I appreciated that
Maybe a
the
little distraction.
people, a little bit of a distraction, and definitely the people that I worked with. I mean, they were just so caring.
And you said Scott Hamilton was also very supportive.
Yes,
during
so
that time.
the first day I met with my oncologist, I had a video message from him. And that's what he's all about. His Scott Cares Foundation is about finding new treatments for cancer. They say that treat the cancer and spare the patient, because treatment for cancer is very aggressive and destructive. So he was very supportive, and he and his foundation, they sent me handwritten cards. They checked in on me.
Oh wow,
Just
nice.
they're wonderful.
That's excellent. Now stage 4. I mean,
Yeah.
that's up there. That's tough. was the prognosis ever enter your mind, or were you told that the odds were against you, that you
No.
might not come out of this?
I was never told that. And my doctor was very positive and thought, the spot on your lung, the chemo's going to get that. I don't want you to even worry about it.
That's
I
good.
hesitate to even mention it. So I believed her, and she was right.
So there was a
And
lot of trust there that you had with the
yes,
doctor.
I did. I love the doctor.
What was your emotional lowest of lows? What was, if you don't
Yeah.
mind sharing?
I think it was what I just said, allowing certain energy into my creative healing space, or in that sacred healing space. I wish that I hadn't done that in a way. It was a trade-off. The lowest point physically was my fourth round of chemo, fourth or fifth. I was really, really sick. And it just so happened that my daughter had been staying with me that day for a couple days. And then she went home and my husband was coming the next day and he hadn't gotten there yet. So it was that night I was alone and I should never have been alone.
Wow.
And so I didn't even know. It's if I call the ambulance, I can't even get up to unlock the door for them. That's how sick I was. They're gonna have to break it down with an axe,
Right.
So I just ended up just waiting it out. And the doctor the next day or the next visit, she's like, next time go to the emergency room. But it sounds easy, but when you're alone, you
Right.
can't just go to the emergency room.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that was the darkest point physically, and after that they adjusted my meds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you just kept fighting, kept
Yep.
believing,
Yep.
stayed
Through
positive.
the last round. I was really terrified the last round that it was going to happen again. Your body has memory, and my body was saying, please don't do that again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So for people in similar situation, God forbid, what advice do you have for them?
To know that there are silver linings, to know that, to embrace the people that are caring about you, and to, if you're in fear, to know that you'll get through it and there'll be times ahead that you're not feeling that pain. Yeah, just hang on.
Hang on. How did cancer improve your life?
It made me appreciate that time and relationships are our greatest gifts, and not to take time for granted, not to waste time on stupid stuff that doesn't matter, not to waste time on relationships that don't matter, or just really recognize the people in your life who care about you and tell them, let them know that you appreciate them and
Yeah.
spend time with them.
Oh, that's a great message.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic message. Has your experience with cancer influenced your art?
Yeah, so when I was going through treatment, I was generously gifted a condo in Charlestown by my sister who owned it, and she uses it to rent out, and it was empty at the time. So she let me go there for my treatments, and it's right on the water, and it was the most peaceful place to heal. It was free of distractions, and I loved it there. And so I went out on her balcony and I photographed the Boston skyline at all times, day and night. I would hear the cannons from Old Ironside and run out to the balcony and take pictures of it as it was
Oh,
going
wow.
by. A couple times I'd hear fireworks and I'd get out there and photograph the fireworks. Clearing storm, I love clearing storms, and took pictures of the skyline with that beautiful afternoon light after a thunderstorm was clearing. Sunrise, sunsets, I mean, just so many different pictures, all taken from exactly the same place.
Oh, neat.
And I didn't have to overthink it with how am I going to light this.
Right.
I just took the camera and the tripod out there, and that's all I needed.
Yeah. And so I'm starting to get it now, because having never had cancer myself, you hear other people say, don't take life for granted. You're not talking about just people. You're talking about every breath, every moment. Food must taste better.
It does.
Smells must smell.
After chemo, yeah.
Good one. I can give you 6 bonus points for that answer. That's fantastic. But in all seriousness, everything must be experienced at such a different level. At such a different level. So it's not, to me, it's not as easy as just saying, I'm going to be grateful for what I have in my life, not going to take it for granted, but to truly be in every moment as if it could be your last
Yeah,
time.
and
with
it's
this.
hard to do. Like, it does give you that perspective, but the other day, for example, I got sucked into the computer with a problem I was having, and I just spent the whole day and the whole night on it, and I was so ashamed.
Right.
It's like, you're doing it again.
Right.
Stop it.
Yeah. Wow. This is
Yeah.
I wish I had another half hour to talk to you about all of this. How are you doing today? Where are you with this?
2 clean scans.
Okay,
The
excellent.
doctor let me get my port removed early because she said that cancer is not coming back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yay. All right.
Yeah, and then I had a basal cell carcinoma, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And the different doctor now, she's like, I don't want you to panic. And I recognized that she was giving me the speech for someone who's just finding out they had cancer. And I was like, I'm not panicking. I'm really pissed. Because I actually noticed it when I was going through
Right.
chemo. It's like, who gets a new cancer when they're going through chemo? But I guess it's a different kind of cancer, and I got it removed. I'm like, put me on the waiting list and just get rid of this thing immediately.
Wow.
So that's gone. That was just a little bump in the road.
Oh, thank gosh.
But yeah, so
thank
I
goodness.
am questioning. It's like, why is my body reacting this way now?
Yeah.
You know, and really trying to live a life that's more deliberate and healthier, make healthier choices.
Well, that is fantastic advice for everyone watching out there. We have like 1 minute left.
Really?
Yeah, I know it goes by so fast.
Yes.
I know. What are you working on now, and how can people find out more about your photography
Right.
now?
So KathrynCostello.com, Kathryn, and I am looking for high school seniors to photograph. I want to do 5 model shoots over the summer where they come in with their friends, and I want to ultimately get a team together of senior reps from schools in the area, and that would mean that they would shoot with me throughout the year, and we would do studio shoots. We would do them in their sports, find out what their interests are. Like, I really
Interesting.
love figuring out like what makes somebody who they are. Like, if someone was going to do a story about you for an article in a magazine or something, what would that story be, and what would the photographs be?
So it's not a 5 minute session and you're done. It
No.
really is getting to know
No, it's
the
really
real
doing a
subject.
deep dive.
Yeah.
I have a very similar program for them where they'll come in for a studio shoot, and then for a year I invite them back to light painting shoots, powder shoots, and clay shoots, just the different ways I'm thinking creatively. I invite them, they're my people,
Wow.
you know, for a year, and then we get together and have a big celebration at the end.
Oh,
Trying to
that's
kind
awesome.
of build community around these things that I do.
Very different than a typical photography session. So please check out Kathryn's work. She's amazing, and she will find the real you inside of those photos. And been a true inspiration, true pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm
Thank
so
you
glad
for
you're doing well.
asking me.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. Thank you very much. That's it for Goal Time. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and we'll see you at the next episode.